South Africa is mourning the deaths of at least 74 people killed in a building fire in central Johannesburg on Thursday. Witnesses say as many as 200 people could have been living in the building illegally. Investigators are looking for the cause. The president says the accident is a wake-up call to address the housing crisis in South Africa's inner cities. Let's go to Fahmida Miller, who's live for us in Johannesburg. Fahmida, do we know more about what happened?
More details have emerged since that blaze started in the early hours of Thursday morning. And I'm just going to step out of shop for a moment to give you an idea of what it looks like now and describe exactly what people went through as they tried to escape that blaze. Many of them were trapped in the basement area of this building. And what we also understand from city officials is that there were a number of shacks erected in the basement area, and it was densely populated, partitioned off, and people were crammed into that area, and that's what made it very difficult for them to escape. I mean, you can see the debris and what the building looks like, and as we go further up, it was more difficult for people to try and escape because of the number of floors, and there was no way out. Of course, safety an issue, very few safety regulations in place because this was a hijacked building. It was illegally occupied. Now, we understand from reports and from firefighters who were on the scene, they say that they found a number of bodies piled up together behind a locked gate. And people couldn't get out because of that gate. And this is what caused many of the challenges in trying to get out. So it really paints a devastating picture around what happened and how reliant people were on emergency services. But even when firefighters entered, they say that when they tried to rescue people, there were some who were too scared to follow them through the flames, and so instead locked themselves in their rooms. And this is why we see that high number of people killed, at least 74. We know 12 of them were children. Today, officials have brought sniffer dogs in to try and find any more human remains, and that's likely that that death toll will rise.
Fahmida, it is such a harrowing story, and just looking at that blackened building behind you and just trying to imagine what people there must have been going through. The fact that the building was taken up or hijacked, as you said, by homeless people, does it speak to a wider problem in the city?
It certainly does, and we'll talk about this building specifically first to give you an idea of what the city is faced with. This building was condemned in 2020, and that means it should have been demolished. That wasn't done because, according to the NGO that had leased this building or that occupied this building, they were confronted by slumlords who overran the building and then brought in tenants and charged them illegally to stay here. In fact, back then, about 140 people were arrested, some of them charged, many of them illegal immigrants. So there are a couple of issues the city is dealing with. Management of the city, some are calling it dysfunctional, and the hijacking of buildings in that they're taken over by slumlords. There are at least 400 of them within Johannesburg that the city can't do very much about. There's also the issue of illegal immigrants, undocumented foreigners who come into the country, and because there is a housing crisis, as you said earlier, they look for housing in places like this, and this is why they can be charged those rental amounts by these slumlords, and there's very little regulation. Because this building was condemned and meant to have been demolished, it remained unsafe. People moved in, there was illegal electricity connections and unsafe electricity connections and water connections. So all these factors come together, resulting in the incident we saw in the last 24 hours and the loss of at least 74 lives.
OK, thank you for that. Fahmida Miller there for us live in Johannesburg.